prices worse. Talking about Venezuela once again to make important banks. They removed the 1,000 thing on there called monetary preparedness. RTD News midday check-in. Wanted to connect real quick, share with you some recent announcements. But as I've always said, everything that we're going to hear from the mainstream news sources primarily is old news, but just surfacing at this current moment due to the current economic global crises conditions. But anyway, hope everyone's doing well. I want to share with you a couple thoughts and whatnot, and just paint more of a picture, leading up to the bigger picture of this global transition out of the petrodollar system and the new alternatives that will be spun our way, or things that we'll hear about. But hope everyone's doing well. As always, for those tuning in, definitely let me know where you're watching from via chat. Want to make sure you guys stay plugged in throughout the day. And I appreciate the community member that brought this information to my attention. And so, as always, for those that are new, definitely click the subscribe button and the bell notification if you want to stay plugged in during the day when we go live, as well as when videos are released. But let me jump right into the leading story, or one of many stories that we're going to touch on today. But here we got a little visual aid I put together. It shows the Iranian leader as well as Vladimir Putin. And it looks like due to the continual push from the West, denying access to the SWIFT current system, it only furthers the need for alternatives. And so sanctions have turned out to be the biggest blessings for nations, because they have to now begin developing alternatives, and that basically allows them to continue to function in the global monetary system. And today's announcement, given from the Iranian news sources, just only paints a little bit of a picture to the bigger story, of which they're just telling us that they're considering beginning the process of coming up with alternatives for the system. But in actuality, if you do a little bit of digging, you'll find out that they have already been doing development. And in my personal opinion, they're already ready and probably operational. And so I got some articles I want to share with you that paints the bigger picture as to how this is not just a two-country experience here. The ultimate agenda is to connect Russia, Iran with a lot of other countries, and I'm going to show you a visual aid in the map with that as well. So let's dive right in. And as always, appreciate you guys for taking time to bless me with your presence. Want to definitely do my best to keep you informed and up to date on what's going on. But let me get your thoughts on the visual aid as well. Thumbs up, thumbs down. Quick little picture to try to paint a bigger story. But here is the headlines I want to start off with. It says Moscow, Tehran developing SWIFT alternative, coming from Iranian sources. And this is as of today. And just to give an idea, it says Russia and Iran have been cooperating to connect their interbank messaging systems in order to bypass SWIFT financial network. The ambassador of the Republic of Iran said today. It says both are facing Western sanctions and trade through the SWIFT if possible. And so, quote, we are making efforts in this direction. Jalila reports, as quoted as a Novosti news agency. Just a bit of a quote. They're making efforts in the direction. And so, as I mentioned before, it's my opinion that the infrastructure has already been set. I'm going to point back why that is. It's talking about alternative in Iran and Moscow. You just have to put that information in, get a much different story. So here, from 4 years ago, reference to development took place, years ago in total. I would join Russia's original network. So once again, this is 4-year-old story in and of itself, just from this, but it goes back further. And again, what's going on here just says Russia is looking to establish a real payment network in the foreseeable future, and can be if it meets the tech requirements. It says on Monday, the IC, which is a branch of the Iranian central bank, one of their spokesmen, Jafi, if I'm saying that incorrectly, discussed the issue of integrating the payment systems of Iran and Russia and the reasons behind the delay. 4 years ago. Okay. In the much anticipated scheme for several months. So it was a delay on that Monday in 2018, which is already several months behind. So that takes us back into 2017. It says Iran first announced in mid-May if I can zoom in correctly. In mid-May, let me get this right. Okay. Iran first announced in mid-May 2017 that it has reached an agreement with Russia to integrate their bank card system. So not a complete network system, but the bank card systems at that point was the first step at integrating their systems. And it's good to say that they've ironed out those kinks since then. And then to take it even further, here's a little picture of a merger of Iranian and a Russian card. And it looks like the hangups they were having at that point had more to do with the archaic banking model that existed in Iran, to where they didn't have the chip features. They didn't have smart chip features in their cars. They had the old models just because they haven't been a part of the banking structure for quite some time, several decades to say the least. And so the hangup was security fraud. Russia was concerned with the liabilities of having the merger of their banking networks working, and there being some loopholes on the Iranian side because their infrastructure is so old. And so that was some of the delays. But it's good to say they got that stuff ironed out. Keep it moving right along. And this is how we know they got it ironed out. And so here's another article here. It says Russia-led regional payment network could blunt U.S. sanctions on Iran. So this is August in 2018. Highlighted a couple things here to really show that all the information we're going to be hearing from headline news that sounds disruptive, they're old. They're just becoming public knowledge now because it fits the current narrative of the transition. It says Russia's reportedly preparing to establish a regional integrated network. Iran understandably wishes to join such a network. Says the news of the apparent Russian initiative was first publicized by Abu Taleb Najafi, the CEO of Informatics Services Corporation, an executive arm of the Central Bank of Iran that was established in 1993 to create and operate Iran's comprehensive banking automation system and payment networks. It says joining a Russian payment network means that a significant portion of the need to employ physical banknotes will be eliminated, which will be a major benefit for Iran. So ultimately, in Iran, due to the archaic model of their banking structure, as well as sanctions, they've been cut off for the last 40 plus years from the SWIFT model, give or take in spurts. So they are heavily dependent on physical cash. So to get caught up to speed with the global transition away from cash, they need to get caught up to speed by being able to build out their infrastructure. And they're seeing their connection with Russia as a bonus, because majority of the developed nations already use less cash because everyone has the smart chip in their cars where they can use that feature and all the tap stuff. So this is Iran trying to get up to speed. This was 4 years ago, mind you. Keep it on moving. It says the payment network could serve as a gateway for Iran to notably boost its commercial ties with other member countries. So once again, as I mentioned, this is just not an isolated between Russia and Iran. This is a regional experience that's going on here. And then it says it stands for a reason that mention regional includes the 10 post-Soviet republics of the Commonwealth of Independent States. So we haven't heard much about the Commonwealth of Independent States, but what that equates to is the Eurasian organization country. So here we have on the screen here the Commonwealth of Independent States. And if you look at this visual aid here, these are all the regions that were formerly Soviet Union. So we got all these countries here, which could possibly, I got to verify this, but it could possibly include Ukraine. I'm not sure. Don't quote me on that. But here's a flag for the Commonwealth of Independent States, and it gives a name of all those regions here. And the nations consist of Armenia, Azerbaijan, Belarus, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Moldova, Russia, Tajikistan, and Uzbekistan. Uzbekistan, and Turkmenistan, and Afghanistan, and Mongolia. So not, no Ukraine, but yet, and don't sleep on what they could try to do with that country once it's out of the deep state puppet's hands. Anyway, so as you guys can see here, the goal is to connect Russian payment network with all of these nations. And then from videos prior, I talked about how you have the Belt and Road Initiative, which are the nations in the Asian region, which are down in this gray area here. So you got China looking to develop all this down here. You have Russia trying to develop all this out here. They're going to be interconnected to some one or two different networks at some point in the near future. So, but you guys are aware of that. So keep it going real quick. It says, against the backdrop, the reported efforts to establish a regional payment network could act as a launch pad to boost Iran's trade with the CIS, or the Commonwealth of International States, and better realize its long-term goal of expanding non-oil trade to decrease its dependency on oil. So right now, Iran has been the one of the most untapped oil reserves due to the sanctions and due to the fact they've been cut off from the financial structure and dealing with everything over in the western hemisphere. And so they are sitting on a large reserves of oil that hasn't really been well utilized. And so they're trying to get away from that and not solely be dependent upon that. And they feel that being a part of this regional connection payment network would definitely allow them to diversify themselves and not be solely dependent upon their economy for oil's sake. So that's it right there. Then last part here says, according to Najafi, Russia only made the decision to establish the network in recent months, something he called a change in strategy. So this has to do with the bigger picture. And it says, in addition to Russia, Iran has also proposed bank card system integration with at least 7 other countries, namely Japan, China, Azerbaijan, Iran, Iraq, Turkey, Oman, and Uzbekistan. So this is just on the payment card processing system from 4 years ago, which lets me know that it's already up and operational. Now it's a matter of when they announce the official interbanking network through some type of digital ledger technology situation, which in my personal opinion is already said and done. I would imagine Putin wouldn't be playing chess at a point at this stage of the game, and he's not a couple steps ahead of the overall agenda. So we will see how this all plays out, but I wanted to connect for a quick minute, share my 2 cents as to how the headline story is saying that they're working on it. It's not the case. It's already done, in my personal opinion. But I'm curious to hear what you guys think. As always, share some comments if you're watching the replay. And if you're catching this live now, save those thoughts for when we go live at 4 p.m. and bring it back to the channel. And definitely let me know your thoughts on that as well as anything else. And for those that are new, make sure you click the subscribe button as well as the bell notification to stay plugged in. If you found any value here, please share this information so more people can get a better understanding of the bigger picture, not just the small details, because ultimately, as I always say, what we're up against here happens to be on this visual aid right here. And this is the historical viewpoint of this global monetary transition away from the petrodollar system and into whatever else will eventually be announced within the coming months, in my opinion. But that's all she wrote for this little news update. Be blessed, be safe. See you guys later. Peace.